welcome to Broadsheets, a political panel show here on Quays TV discussing this week in British politics. Today I'm joined by broadcaster Max Davies and University of Manchester's Young Conservatives Blake Keeper. Thank you both for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
So we've got 4 topics covering today with the Trigger Me Timbers WhatsApp group chat that's pretty much gone viral and created such an uproar and discussion this week to do with Andrew Gwynn and his suspension from the Labour Party. The tax breaks from farmer protests that happened yesterday during Keir Starmer's speech in Buckinghamshire area. Investigation into Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, and Kemi Badenoch and her first 100 days as the Conservative Party leader. Okay, so to start off, the Trigger Me Timbers group chat, we've seen two Labour MPs being suspended, now standing as independent, as well as 11 councillors being suspended from the party in both Tameside and Stockport. And now there are calls for Andrew Gwynn and Denton councillors to resign as MPs and councillors. Should they resign or should they stay in their position?
I don't think that just because he's made the comments he should resign. But there's a lot going on in Denton. For example, there was a case of a councillor stealing £2,000 from charity, and it's known that the local MP, which would have been Gwynn, knew about it. I think if he apologises for the comments and moves on in an actual heartfelt apology to the people that he's offended, then I think he could definitely stay as an MP. I don't think he should be standing again, really. I think he's lost the trust of the public. But I don't think he necessarily needs to resign. But if he refuses to actually meet with these people, refuses to apologise, stands by his comments, then he should absolutely go.
Yeah, I don't think he has to resign, but I think that it's like no one's going to like him, are they? There's already petitions to get him removed. Although they haven't got that many signatures. I looked and the biggest one seemed to have 1,000 signatures. But still, like, I know if my local MP had been making comments about his constituents, which, like, what he was saying, I wouldn't trust them to have my best interest at heart. Like, obviously, he's had a career being a fairly competent politician for his whole life, and it seems a bit sad to kind of lose your career over some comments. But equally, when you're in that position, like, you have a duty to be caring about the people who voted for you and to be looking after them. You know, you can't say F your bins, because that's really important to people. It really, it seems a bit lame and pointless, but it is important. And if you've shown people that you've got that attitude, even if loads of people do have that attitude and just kind of keep it under wraps, at that point you've lost their trust. So really he should. Like, I think it's going to be a lot of effort for him to do anything to get people back on side. With the other MP, the Oliver Ryan, I feel like his comments weren't so bad and they were longer ago.
Yeah, they were when he was a councillor for Audenshaw, not when he was an MP.
There we go. So I think he's fine. He should be fine, he should say. But Andrew Gwynn, especially someone that senior, like, you have a responsibility. I think he should take responsibility and resign. But, you know, it's up to him, isn't it?
I mean, there's an investigation underway, and one Labour source has said that we are braced for more. So do you think it's possible that more people could be involved in similar group chats? We've seen WhatsApp group chats cause scandals in Parliament, especially with Partygate and stuff with Boris Johnson throughout COVID. Could we see more WhatsApp group chats causing problems for politicians?
I think it's pretty much certain that if they get leaked, there's going to be more people complaining. You know, like, it's everyone in their job complains about, like, the public. Anyone who's in a public-facing job complains about members of the public. You know, if you work in service industry, you just talk about it all the time. I saw an interview which had Kwasi Kwarteng, a guy who I don't particularly care for very much, but he was saying that he hadn't made any of these comments in WhatsApp group chats because they get leaked, not because he doesn't think it. He didn't say that. He said, I didn't say it because they get leaked and you get in trouble for it. And I'm sure that more will get leaked and more people will get in trouble for it. So there is that danger of if every single MP's been, you know, making derisive comments about their constituents and then it all gets exposed, you know, we'll have no government left. So you have to draw a line at some point.
Is there a lesson here for MPs and councillors?
Your thoughts on that?
Don't say stupid things don't put it in writing if you do say it. It's not particularly difficult to just mutter it under your breath. Just don't commit it to paper or to phone or whatever. Keep disappearing messages on in all your WhatsApp group chats. Just be reasonable, really. Like,
Do you think it's okay for politicians to have these opinions about their constituents, or should there be like a moral compass towards whether or not you could be, a local leader when you aren't going to be the kindest towards your constituents?
I don't think that the comments of "hopefully you're dead" before the next general election are particularly appropriate. Sorry, before the all-outs are particularly appropriate for a member of parliament to be making. I definitely don't know any. I don't personally know any Tory member of parliament who've done the same. I'm sure at some point one probably has, but I can't speak to them. But in terms of things like a small comment about the bins, or many of the comments that do get made over, like, verbally, they're not as severe. I mean, I've never heard any Tory campaigner wish death upon someone, even when we're being, harassed in the street and called pedophiles. So I don't think a member of parliament should ever be calling for someone to die. But with a comment like "F your bins," just don't put it on text. I think if someone is persistent enough about it, and I don't think the poor woman who was wished death upon was particularly persistent. It's not like she was harassing anyone. But if you are being relentlessly pestered by someone, and in private you say something like "F your bins," it's not that bad. I don't think, anyway.
Okay.
But I think there's that thing of like whether the priority should be to not have these opinions as opposed to being able to hide them, which is kind of, you get some great suggestions there of how you can keep yourself safe as a politician, which politicians probably should follow. But like, really, if you are a politician, then you shouldn't really be having these attitudes. And I think if you do, like you say, keep it to yourself rather than like say it in places where you can't be caught. Just don't express it to anyone. Like these are things you should not really be worrying you as a politician. Whether you find one of your constituents a bit annoying, so what?
All right, well, thank you. Moving on to our next topic, the tax breaks for farmers. This has been a pretty divisive issue since the announcements in the general election about undertaking introducing the inheritance tax on farmers. Starmer said that the public should have the choice between better living standards and tax breaks for farmers. Would tax breaks for farmers actually, removing them affect living standards?
I think I don't like it when politicians give you a straight comparison like that. I get why they do it; it's good rhetoric, but it feels the same as like if we leave the EU, we'll get this amount of money for the NHS. Like it never works that simply, does it? And obviously they need more money to invest in public services, and this is a good way of getting it. And I think that I can kind of see what they've done. I can kind of see both sides on this, but at the same time, if what farmers are saying in terms of when they pass their farms on, they're going to have to break them up and they're all going to become less efficient because smaller farms are less efficient. That's going to lead to higher food prices, and that's going to affect living standards, isn't it? So I think this tax on inheritance tax on farmers could have effects positively or negatively for living standards, and I think it's a bit disingenuous to say you have a direct choice between them. I understand why he's done it, but I didn't like that comment very much. Should
smaller farmers, like more family farms, be excluded from this tax?
Yeah, I think so. This is the issue. What you hear is that farmers are cash poor, even though they're asset rich. So if you're having to pay, actual cash to the government, then you're going to have to sell off some of your assets, and soon all the small farms are going to be gone, built and collected by these big conglomerates who can pay it, or divided up into little farms which are exempt from the tax, which don't have any. Which won't have any taxes to pay. So then you end up with none of the middle ground farmers who are quite efficient but sort of not huge corporation conglomerations. And I think those people are quite important. I think that I can see why the tax was done, but I think more consideration needs to be done. And I think they need to have more chats with farmers. I think they're having a chat on Tuesday, I heard. So hopefully something comes of that.
Yeah, I think it's a bit ridiculous that there is this tax, and it will only affect the middle farmers, really, because big corporations don't pay inheritance tax because they're not dying. So it's just going after the middleman, like the middle-class farmers, just going after the ones who have property that's worth something if it was to be turned into houses, but as a farm doesn't really generate a lot of money, especially not after, paying for all the tractors and everything. If you look at how much farmers make on shows like Jeremy Clarkson's Farm, it's not a lot of money even with subsidies, and it's true that Clarkson can't be used as a great example for all farmers because he wastes a lot of money because he's a bit of a, he's doing it for comedy. But they don't make a lot of money compared to what the assets are worth. It's going to take them, what is it, like the estimation is 10 years to pay off the inheritance tax? And that is ridiculous. It's basically serfdom at that point. I don't think it's a good idea.
But I think the Clarkson thing raises the other issue, doesn't it? Which is the other problem they're trying to solve with this, which is to stop people like Jeremy Clarkson just buying up all the farms and all the super wealthy people buying up farms because they can use it as a way of avoiding inheritance tax, which is pretty much what Clarkson said he did it for. I bought this so I don't have to pay inheritance tax. So it is a big tax loophole which the super wealthy can use to avoid paying taxes to the government, which we need to fund our public services. And I think that this is the issue when you go after people like Clarkson, who I think, he'll be all right. He can afford to pay it. He always says that on this show, like, farmers don't make much money, but I can pay it. It's all right. The issue is the middle farmers who get caught in the crossfire. I think it's a hard issue and there's not really a good answer for it. Like, I think, I don't really know what the answer is, but I don't think that there's the government policy is perfect, but I don't think that the government policy as it was before was great either. So I don't really know.
Yeah, so Clarkson's been a major figure in the protests, especially the one on the 25th of January. So how come he's taking a major voice against these taxes when it doesn't affect him?
Well, I think it does affect him because he'll have to pay him. He can afford to. That's the thing. He's rich enough to afford to, but he was hoping that he wouldn't have to, which is why he bought a farm. So he's obviously annoyed about that. And he's also just taken on this role as like the voice of the farmers because he's had a successful farming show. And I think it depends on the farmers you talk to. It seems like a lot of the people who live in the village around Clarkson don't like him very much. And then some people say he's done more for British farming than anyone else, and then some people say he's just a classic example of, rich city dwellers coming over and taking over the land from people who live in the country. So I think Clarkson's a bit of a controversial figure. I personally really like him. I find him really entertaining. But I do think that his politics in this situation are extremely... they're very much self-serving, and when he tries to say that it's not for himself, then he's lying.
Okay, well, thank you. Moving on to the third topic for today, Rachel Reeves. She's been reportedly been under investigation when she was working at the Halifax Bank of Scotland, and there are reports that she did not wrongly performed expensive claims while she was there. So she claimed, it came out a while ago that she claimed to work at the Bank of England longer than she had, and there's now recently came out that she was involved in an expenses probe while she was a senior manager at the Halifax Bank. Do you think calls for Rachel Reeves to resign should go ahead?
No, absolutely not. Do you have any thoughts on that?
People value honesty in politicians, and they don't think politicians are very honest. And I think this is an example of why, because Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer went on for basically 3 years about, the evil Conservatives lied to you about Partygate, the Conservatives lied about this and that and all that. And the whole time, Starmer was lying about going around during COVID, and Rachel Reeves has been lying about where she's worked, how long she's worked, and what she's claiming money for. So she was claiming money on sick days for when she was doing Labour Party business at a bank. And I don't think that's okay. That is fraud at the end of the day, and we shouldn't have a Chancellor who is fraudulent because they're handling trillions of pounds. And I think Rachel Reeves has been disastrous for the economy and probably should be resigning anyways. But if we are just to follow her personal CV, the fact she's lied about it to the public, the fact she's spent so long trying to cover it up, just shows she's not a very honest person. I don't think we should really be trusting her in a great office of state.
I think that it is a bit of hypocrisy from the Labour government to be like with a government of honesty and then have things like their Chancellor has been shown to lie multiple times. But at the same time, I don't think the magnitude of the lie is that great. Like, it was that she worked at the Bank of England till, December 2006 rather than March 2006. And a lot of people, I mean, it's different for politicians. Again, it's just back with the WhatsApp thing of like, you have to have a bit more integrity if you're going to be in public office. But if you just got someone making a CV for you and you say, I worked here from 2001 to 2006, and they just chuck 2006 on, and just it's December 2006 is what it goes to, you should really, if you are someone who's dealing with things as important as the economy, have that attention to detail and have that honesty to, fix issues like that. But I honestly don't think it's that big a deal. And I think that I know what you were saying about claiming expenses for sick days to do Labour business. I've not heard about that, and that might change my opinion a little bit. But the sort of expenses scandal that I saw online was more that she was buying gifts for people on this company credit card, and it was, excessive. But then a lot of people who've worked at the company with her were like, that's basically what we were told to do. Everyone was doing it. She didn't know that she was being investigated. She left on good terms. I think that the expenses thing, especially, far less than the CV expenses thing, is a bit ridiculous. I think it's very overblown. It's very much just a political attack. And I think that it's too soon to know how Rachel Reeves' handling of the economy is really going to affect us long term. I think that as well. The issue we've had in the last few years is so many governments and so many chancellors coming and going so quickly that we don't get a chance to see what the long term effects of any of their policies are. I think we need a little bit of time to just have some consistent government and see if any of the long term plans can be followed through and how they affect us in the long term. I don't think everyone just resigning as soon as there's any sort of issue with them is a practical way of keeping our country growing and going forward.
For some reason, I would doubt that you would think the same about Liz Truss.
Yes, that's true. But the thing is about Liz Truss is that her reforms were in a mini budget, not in the actual budget, and so radical and so quick that that week, well, this is a personal story. This is why I have something against Liz Truss. That week, when she announced the mini budget, it was a week I went to America, and it was the first week, I think for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, something like that, where the dollar and the pound were at the same level. And it cost me so much extra money being in America because of Liz Truss's mini budget and because of Kwasi's mini budget. And, she was someone who wasn't voted in by the public. She was just put in there. The public did not vote for her. So it's different. Public voted for Labour. Mainly, I will admit, just to get rid of the Tories rather than being actively enthusiastic about Labour policies. But, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer were voted in by the public. They should be allowed to pursue their agenda for a bit longer, I think.
20% of the public voted for Labour.
Well, more than voted for the Tories.
Well, if you consider Reform Cyan Tories, we can come out on top still.
Yeah,
almost
true.
There.
We'll get the Lib Dems and SNP on time.
So real.
So Kemi Badenoch has called, she said that until Rachel Reeves comes clean, no one will take Keir Starmer seriously. Do you think that people take him seriously?
Not really.
Starmer, I don't know if taking him seriously is really the issue. I think people kind of see him as kind of like a serious guy. They just see him as a bit boring and a bit useless. But I'd say that, I don't know, I would say that people take Keir Starmer more seriously than they take Kemi.
Okay. Well, moving on to Kemi Badenoch then. The government have accused Kemi Badenoch of complete hypocrisy after she appeared to backtrack on her support for the reform of English football. So do you guys both know about the football governance bill, which was introduced by the Tory government, and now Kemi Badenoch has called it a waste of money?
Yeah, I'm not going to endorse Kemi. I'll be completely clear with that. I was always a generic fan. I much preferred him. I'm not a fan of her. I think if she wants to criticise things the previous government did, she should have resigned from the previous government. And the fact that she stayed through it so long sort of binds her to hold to what we were doing then, even if it was wrong.
I think I haven't already expressed, not a Kemi fan, but I think that there's this discussion about her hypocrisy where she sent a message to someone saying she supported this bill, but that was actually when she had resigned from government, I think, under Boris Johnson. I don't know when she came back, I haven't looked into that, but her support was when she wasn't part of the Conservative Party, I think, and then she obviously is again, but I think she's been hypocritical on far more issues than this. Like, there's so many times in PMQs, which is quite sad to see, where Kemi will be like, it is kind of annoying because Kemi will say an issue, like a valid issue with the government, and Starmer's response is like, yeah, that's something your government did, which we're just carrying on. And I think that it does stop Starmer from ever really answering questions, because he's always got this out of like, yeah, it's your fault, and it usually is.
This is why generic was the better choice.
Okay, well, this week at the PMQs, Badenoch questioned Starmer about allowing Palestinian migrants to live in the UK under the Homes for Ukraine scheme, obviously because these are for Ukrainian refugees rather than Palestinian migrants. But this week's also marked her 100 days as the Conservative leader, and we've established, Blake, that you don't think it should have been her, but insiders have said that she actually hates the media, because we haven't seen much of her doing interviews, it tends to be her representatives like Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, and Victoria Atkins as well for education, if I'm correct. Am I right?
I don't know.
Okay. And there's been a lot of reports about her first 100 days. And actually, Scottish Tory leader Ruth Davidson has said that she only has 18 months left on the job.
That's quite generous.
Oh, you think it's generous?
I don't know. I think it's the constant talk that Kemi's probably going to go, and I think maybe being a leader of the opposition is less as important a job as being prime minister. I think if she was prime minister, she'd already be gone. But just, I think that everyone who I've spoken to isn't a Kemi fan, even Conservatives. You know, like she's not very popular. She's just kind of like, I feel like she's a placeholder just until they can find someone better, because she just comes across really incompetent. She says she's like doesn't like the media very much. It's because the media constantly can prove her hypocrisy, prove her incompetence. I think, you know, even people who are like say they're anti-media but are like good at it will really, good politicians will go for the media even if the media doesn't like them. Say, for example, another person who I don't know very much, but say Trump, right? He says he hates the media, but he's also always constantly talking to the media, getting in the media cycle, so he's in people's minds, so people will vote for him. Even though he hates the mainstream media, he's all over it. You know, Kemi hates the media because they're mean to her. Well, she should be a better politician and, you know, get involved in the media and try and boost herself, get people talking about her in a different way.
Yeah, no, Kemi can't go in front of a camera because when she does, she says something stupid like we should scrap maternity leave. In terms of her first 100 days, I mean, we're polling at less than we did at the general election, and the general election was the worst result we've had in centuries as a party. It's, you know, awful. I think we could be doing better if we had a better leader. I think there are better leaders out there. I think multiple better leaders were in that election. And I do think that she's lost a lot of support from people even within the party. There's not a lot of support for Kemi at the grassroots level. There used to be before she stirred. It was always, I want Kemi bad enough for the next leader. I want Kemi bad enough for the next leader. There's none of that. There's barely any support for her in any Conservative chat. There's very little at the Conservative Society, despite the fact that most of them were in favour of Kemi.
Where has that support gone?
Well, we've seen Kemi go as leader, and so no one likes her anymore because she's doing a crap job.
But where do you think that support for her, those people that previously supported her, who do they support now?
There's a lot of apathy. There's not really many picks for the next leader because everyone has sort of accepted that she's the leader for now and will, you know, have to take the next leadership race as it comes. Whether that's, you know, in 18 months or whether that's when we lose another 40 seats at the next election, that's to be seen. But there is a lot of claims that Kemi isn't doing well for the party, but we don't have anyone solid in place to replace her at the minute.
I think it's tough for her as well. Like, I don't think there are many people who could do well for the Conservatives at the moment. I think the fallout of the last election and all the stuff that came before that is going to last for a while. So I think, you know, the Conservatives are better off with a stronger leader, but I don't really know who that could be or who there is in the world who could, you know, put the Conservatives in a good position right now.
Do you think she would have been a better leader had there not been the threat of the rise of Reform Party?
I think any Conservative politician would have done tremendously better if there was no Reform Party.
She got caught in the issue of denying that Reform had surpassed Conservative membership.
Yeah, I was fairly sceptical myself at the time because the Tory membership numbers weren't too public and I didn't think Reform were going up that quickly. And then, like a week later, they were still going up, so it wasn't even just a thing of just trying to surpass us. And I've got a lot of friends in Reform that have access to their membership, like their local membership, and they're saying like it is genuinely exploding.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was stupid of her to publicly say that they're faking it because at the end of the day, like she claimed to have evidence, she really didn't. I don't know why she went out and said that. It was just another case of if you put Kemi in front of a camera, she'll say something stupid.
Do you think the mix of dislike for Kemi Badenoch as a leader and the rise of Reform have replaced the Conservative Party, or got rid of the Conservative Party as the the party of the right and replace them with Reform?
If you look at the by-elections, the Conservatives are still doing far, far better than Reform. Reform have gained, I think, 6 seats as of today because they just got the one from Labour, whereas the Conservatives have gained about 40, I think.
Okay.
Well, I think the Reform, it's in the name. They want to change stuff, and I think a lot of Conservative thinking is about kind of conserving stuff, keeping stuff, being sensible. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people who've voted Conservative their whole life who aren't going to vote Reform just because they're doing well. I think that the system in the UK, just the voting system, makes it really hard for anyone to overcome the stranglehold of the two parties. Like, even if Reform get a huge percentage of the population, which they do have, a lot of people supporting them, it's just not concentrated in the right places to get enough seats to, yet at least, to pass the Conservatives in the near future, I would say.
Most MRPs are putting them ahead of us in terms of seats. Some of us were in third behind Labour, some of them were second and Labour's in third. One thing that I do find quite interesting is it's not just taking from seats that have traditionally been Conservative there. Places like Sunderland in the northeast are having huge swings to Reform, sort of, white working class areas. And it'll harm both Labour and the Conservatives having a Reform party. It'll really change the dynamic, and I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Now, to finish, what are your two opinions on the future of Rachel Reeves and Kemi Badenoch in politics?
I think both of them have got to go, really. Hopefully neither of them stand at the next general election. Hopefully neither of them really make it that long for the sake of the country or the party.
Max?
Yeah, I don't think either of them are particularly popular. I don't think Reeves is as bad as everyone makes out. I think we need to give her a bit more time.
Do you think she'll stay into the next election?
I don't know.
Starmer has said that he supports her still.
Yeah, I don't think there's much drive really within sort of Labour to get rid of her yet, but we'll see what happens with that. I think Kemi would be lucky to be here in the next election.
Right, well, thank you both for joining me today, and I'll see you next week for Broadsheets.